Good evening, and welcome to the ISD 191 Burnsville Egan Savage School Board meeting, the 2nd of September. The date today is September 24th, 2020, and the time is 6:30 p.m. I'd like to welcome people who are joining us at home. This is our first hybrid board meeting model. We have board members and staff both in attendance here at Diamond Head, and we also have board members and staff joining us remotely. So here's to technology. Director Hume, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll start tonight by approving the agenda. I will take a motion. Moved by Director Schatz, second?
Second.
Seconded by Director Miller. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Kenny, would you please call the roll?
Courier,
Aye.
Hume,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Alt,
Aye.
Schatz,
Aye.
Chester.
Aye. And the motion carries. Thank you. Starting off tonight, we will receive reports. The first is from Dr. Battle. We will receive an update about District 191's efforts to implement COVID-19 related educational and public health guidance issued by the MDE and MDH, respectively. Dr. Battle.
Thank you, Chair, all directors of the board. Tonight, once again, I will share information related to the 4 primary areas of our planning: health and safety, academics, student and family support, operations, and staff professional development, if applicable. After my report, you will receive a presentation regarding community education, food and nutrition, and transportation. I start with today's county health numbers. These numbers for confirmed cases in Dakota and Scott County per 100,000 residents is from the time period 8/30 to 9/12. Dakota County dropped to 15.78 from the last 2 weeks, 21.28, and Scott County also dropped to 15.07 from 17.65. I am still recommending that we stay in the hybrid learning model and continue to offer our virtual academy. Next, academic guidance, school planning. Starting with the virtual academy, teachers are focused on relationships and connections with structuring routines for live classes and how to use the devices. Curriculum materials for all elementary hybrid pods have been ordered, and expected that all materials will be distributed by the end of next week. Quite a storage organizational issue when all these materials were coming in. Materials distribution for virtual academy students will begin September 30th. Professional development for the use of the online supplemental programs continues. In many cases, it is on-demand training online, and these programs do include our math, elementary math, middle school math, language arts, science and social studies, which is Study Island, academic support for English learners, Exact Path, music, smart music, and high school videos showing Swank. Moving on to activities. As many of you are aware, on Monday, September 21st, the Minnesota State High School League Board met to review their previous decision to move volleyball and football to spring. The Minnesota State High School League Board voted to reverse course and permit volleyball and football as fall sports. Teams are permitted to begin practice this coming Monday, September 28th, with competition starting in about 2 weeks. The number of contests are reduced and playoff models are yet to be determined. Our high school activities team continues to monitor implications, including having spectators. There has been guidance from Minnesota State High School League that in-person spectators are not allowed for volleyball because it's indoors, and it is maxed at 250 spectators for football outdoors. Again, we will work with the team at Burnsville High School for many more specifics to be released to students, coaches, and families. As with any activity, we must have COVID plans in place for practices and games, and those are being created, and they will be approved by our lead nurse. For football, the intention for the tickets is to go to immediate family, but we will get more specific information. For volleyball, we do know that the schedule will consist of a round and a half with South Suburban Conference-only opponents. We are also working with BCTV for coverage once the schedule is out for volleyball. Enrollment. Our overall enrollment numbers continue to slowly decline, and this is mainly due to that kindergarten area of decline. Many families are choosing to wait a year to have a more normal kindergarten experience, and that is being experienced across the nation. This is the first week where the enrollment numbers in Virtual Academy declined, but the hybrid enrollment increased. Now I'll turn it over to Lisa Ryder, Executive Director of Business Services, for an update from community education, food service, and transportation. Lisa?
Thank you and good evening. I'm going to turn this over to Tom Umhofer, who is attending virtually, so he can speak regarding the community education and talk a little bit about what it is that we have happening in that department at this time.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Chair Alt. Thank you, Chair Alt, directors, Superintendent Battle. I appreciate the opportunity to inundate you with some of the great things that are going on in the community education department. I will preface this by saying some of these photographs are pre-COVID, and some of them are pre-required masks as well. So you'll see a couple that don't seem to fit the mark, but they were taken in advance of our current situation, so bear with us there. Also want to let you know there are some embedded links in the slide presentation that you can glean some further information on some of the senior correspondence that's going on from the center, summer school, and a nice article about childcare in a local paper. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you a little bit tonight. I did want to say that internal giving has begun already, and it will run through May 28th, and staff are all aware of that, and we're receiving lots of support already, so that's pretty exciting news. We also met briefly this week as a team and had some real discussion about our catalog. You know, given those current circumstances, we were curious about the paper piece, and honestly, we're getting a lot of feedback from our community, and in particular from our senior citizens. They really like the paper. We're about, well, we're way less than half of what our normal catalog size is, but they really like to have the paper piece in hand is what we're hearing. They really like the opportunity for the hands-on activities. They've gotten enough of the online computer screen stuff for themselves and for their children, and our programming that has excelled to date really reflects that. So I'll speak to that a little bit as I go through the presentation. Really quickly though, early childhood, BPK in-person and virtual academy is going great right now. We have over 100 virtual and 125 hybrid students in our elementary buildings. We're basically about 85% capacity, and we're limited only by the new class size limits that have been imposed by the state. So that's really good news. Really good reports from our families on the success that they're finding in these classes. Diamond Head, we are full for preschool classes. Our early childhood mix of virtual and hybrid classes for families. It has started off slow. Families are a little reluctant on the virtual side for the early childhood family education piece, but it's picking up, and we really feel that it will continue to grow. So slow start is really not unexpected, because that's really all about face-to-face and asking, you know, your neighbor sitting next to you some questions as well. So it will pick up. Our screening, we're adapting to the new guidelines laid down by the state, and I think that's going to go just fine. I think overall, early childhood has seen a really strong, positive response to the programming that we've offered in the fashion in which we've offered it. So, and our teachers are very, very excited for the start of the year, and they're having great success. If you'll notice our summer school, there's a link embedded in the presentation on the summer school surveys. Those very interesting reading. I encourage you to look at those afterwards. You can see that a little child on the right, he had his gloves on during summer school. That was pre-required mask, and same with the young man in the middle in the Vikings jersey. But our program was very successful this summer. We had very good turnout. We had very good success. We got very good response from our community, our parents, our students, and our staff. All the survey information is contained. You'll find a good read if you want to look into it. The youth service department over at the high school, clearly we don't have as many students in there as we normally have. But what we do have, we're taking the opportunity to put those students to work in varying places that are safe and accessible and appropriate within our community. We just had another produce pantry tonight at Diamond Head. We sent out 129 boxes, almost 450, I believe, was the number of people and families that we served, and I had 4 high school students from Courtney flew back over to the high school who came over and volunteered their time, did a phenomenal job. So we're getting them back in. We're getting them to pre-register for our Brain Power Backpack Pack. And so it's picking up, but it's a tough piece to have when you really need those students around. And transportation is difficult for many kids, and so we're trying to find some ways around that. Looking ahead to the Ready to Grow, Ready to Learn preschool, good school age care. Ready to Grow, Ready to Learn's got 65 families, and we are still growing. That's over 300 students district-wide. There's over 150 enrolled between MW Savage and Sioux Trail. Actually, I got updated numbers today from just Tuesday, so it continues to climb. We want to make sure that we reach out to everybody. It is every family that we're serving. We are not just serving the Tier 1 families. We are serving everybody in the community that needs childcare. And we encourage families to get online or to call our office and seek out the information that you might need for that. We are helping kids with their homework assignments. That is a dedicated part of their day. We have an incorporated art, gym, and science into the daily routines. So kids are getting a lot of participation in a variety of different activities, and they're getting a lot of help with their distance learning, and it's going quite well. Our staff is doing an amazing job at Project Kids and Ready to Grow, Ready to Learn. It's phenomenal to watch. So that's great. There's also a childcare article link that I'll embed in there. That's for the last couple of weeks it came out. It highlights us basically from March, April, May, June, July, and August. There's a wonderful piece in there on food service as well. Both of those departments have excelled. They've done phenomenal work in the face of really daunting odds. I couldn't be more proud to be a part of that team. So another piece that we're really looking forward to trying is a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade child care program. I've got a lot of questions from families, interest in providing something like that. So we're looking at building some kind of a model, and we have the perfect venues in either Sioux Trail and or MW Savage to provide that opportunity along with the distance learning and everything else. So we are currently working on that and looking to make that a reality. Lisa, you can go to the next one. ABE, we've got over 300 students enrolled in our ABE program right now, on pace with the same number of students we had last year at this time. And you'll see that graduation picture down there. While it's very cute, it's also pretty cool, but it's last year. So just make sure we're all on board with that. We've got morning and afternoon hybrid small groups. We've got Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday distance learning. We've got evening classes, hybrid in-person classes, citizenship, computer, specialized ABE classes. They're all a mixture of hybrid and distance learning. We are almost complete in getting the process of having all of our ABE students have access to an email address through the district. So we can push out all kinds of additional information, opportunities. Many of our students are looking for jobs within the school district. We've employed quite a number of them actually who graduated from our program. We're currently working through our ABE program. It's a wonderful especially specific times of the day when their children might actually be in one of our care programs, our preschool programs. So it's great to see that. Having access to emails is a huge leap forward for the AV program, and I couldn't be more thankful to our technology department for helping to make that a reality for us. So thank you. Moving into the brain powered backpack and Pantry 191 and fresh produce, we have been doing a ton of work since March, and the numbers are staggering. And I debated long and hard about what to include in my presentation, but a brief overview. $67,000 raised in donations in 19 to 24 brain powered backpack, 28,800 bags packed at 37 different after school packs at the high school. It's huge. And that's the lion's share. Those are high school kids coming down and participating. And we know for a fact that some of those kids have family members who are getting these packs. It's so heartening to see that in action. I absolutely love it. We've had over 1,800 volunteers with over 2,100 hours of volunteer time, which is a huge number. And then for the school year, we packed 115,000 meals for kids. Pantry 191, which is our newest edition I referenced, we've served over 1,568 persons with 50,184 meals. And you will see a picture on your screen there. That's an average bag that's packed. We try to pack for a family of 4 that they can make at least 4 meals out of it. That is the shelf-stable part of the Pantry 191. If you look at the little picture on the left, you'll see those are actually onions, but we get onions, potatoes, and bread along with that. So we were able to send that bag home with every family, in addition to the vegetables that we get and the bread that we get, 2 times a month from Diamond Head, and that 4 other school locations 1 time a month through the school district. The produce packs today was peppers, apples, tomatoes, about softball-sized tomatoes. We have watermelons, and we have, for the life of me, I can't think of what it's called. It's a spread. It's hummus. We had a ton of that donated to us, and the food pack is incredible. The cost to us is about 6 to 8 cents per pound. So the fundraising that we've been doing, the money that we've been receiving, that goes to support the pantry program and the brain powered backpack program. So those have been extremely successful. And then fresh produce will run August. Let's see, it started in August. It'll end October 8th, and October 22nd be the last 2 produce distributions. And then it will be the bi-weekly regular pantry through the rest of the school year, in addition to brain powered backpack. Our general enrichment classes are going well, the ones that are in person, the driver's ed, the summer sports camp, anything where we had live bodies in action, they seem to be really, really positive. Virtual classes have not been so good. And again, as I mentioned earlier, people are mentioning that, they're tired of the computer, and we get that. And so we're trying to create opportunities where we can have people actually on site in person. Senior activities have picked up at the senior center, dance programs, yoga. We have virtual chess teams, and that's picking up as we speak. I love it because we've got coaches from around the country who can be virtual, and that's really a positive piece. The virtual business classes and certification courses are okay. 55 Alive senior driving is going through the roof. We have some classes in the senior center that have conservatively 400% increase over the same time last year, just because people can actually come out and participate. Our facilities program is going quite well. We've done a phenomenal job of renting out our facilities and utilizing our facilities for internal and external groups. We've actually employed a couple of additional staff whose job it is to be the 191 liaison at any event that's booked in a 191 facility. So they are there to work with the renter and ensure that they are following their COVID preparedness plan and helping them to manage that and making sure that they're staying on task and on track. And our facilities, we've done a very nice job of renting them out. Christy Myers has done a phenomenal job of reaching out to people and making sure that we've got everything that we need to serve their needs. And we have worked very closely with Bernie Bean and Guillaume and David Lake to make sure that we are not exceeding any of the maximums. In fact, we are actually operating our programs slightly less than the maximums to make sure that we're easing our way into this and experiencing what we need to find out so that we are not overextending ourselves and not getting ourselves into trouble. And it has gone very well, great success. Senior Center, 2,000 comfort calls a week, and you will see a link as well to that I will get included. Over 650 e-newsletters sent out every week. Our seniors are really coming back in. They had their first Fun and Friendship meeting today. It was phenomenal to see everybody there. Haven't seen them for months, almost 8 months. Foot care appointments, sunrise stretch, Tai Chi, painting classes. They are really growing, and they're growing within the constraints that we provide. So we have more sections, but we have fewer people in each section. Lots of cleaning going on in between, and they're doing a phenomenal job keeping up on that. Everybody that goes to the senior center must be pre-registered. We need to be able to make sure that we can track everybody coming in and out. Historically, there have been a lot of opportunities to the senior center where folks can just drop in and participate, but we cannot do that anymore. So that program has done a wonderful job of turning on a dime and coming around and really providing a lot of opportunities. Just in closing, I'd like to say it's been a long few months since March hit, and our staff have done a phenomenal job, and I just couldn't be more pleased to be part of their team. So I thank you for your time tonight, and I'm here for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom, for that awesome report regarding what's happening in community education. We appreciate all of the updated information, and there's so much happening, so we encourage you to check into it. As we talk about food and nutrition, our Director of Food and Nutrition, Julie Kronebetter, is not able to attend tonight as she has a family commitment, so I'm sitting in for her. We do want to give a very special shout out to our food and nutrition employees. Some of them have been working nonstop since mid-March through the summer. So much has been changing on such a very quick time frame, and we very much appreciate all that these employees have put forward for effort and time and commitment to continue feeding our families in ISD 191. One of the things that we want to talk about with regard to food and nutrition is making sure everyone is aware of the information around the summer food service program. We are serving until December 31st or until the funds run out, meals to all ages 1 through 18 free at Eagle Ridge Middle School, Nicollet Middle School, and Ron Curbside between 11 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. All of the students who are attending school in a hybrid model are also receiving those free meals then while they are at school. So we're very happy that we are able to do that through the federal program, but we also are aware that that's going to quickly be changing. And so when that does occur, families will want to make sure that if they are eligible for free or reduced eligible meals, they need to have that application please filled out. We encourage everyone to get that filled out in October if you haven't yet already, to make sure that, first of all, that you have the benefits that you'll need once the federal program ends and we're back to our national lunch, breakfast and school lunch program. Additionally, the numbers that we have in this fall's October counts for free or reduced eligible families, those are numbers that are used in funding formulas by our state of Minnesota in determining our funding for our school district, ISD 191, 2 years down the road. So it's very critical to us that we also have families, if you're eligible, fill out the form. And that would really help us out also at ISD 191 for future programming. If you are wondering where to find that, on the website under services, food services, left side is the application for educational benefits. So please be sure to check into that if that makes sense for you. I'm going to now turn it over to Dave Lake, who's also attending the meeting virtually. Dave Lake is our Director of Operations, Properties, and Transportation.
Board Chair Alt, board members, and Superintendent Battle, I'm happy to report that our first weeks of transportation have been a huge success. We have roughly 60 buses running routes on both A and B days, all while maintaining safety and practicing proper health protocols. A staff member meets each bus both morning and afternoon at all sites to take attendance, which is given to our health offices for contact tracing purposes. Our students are masked up while they travel from home to school and back home again. Please allow me a moment to thank our transportation team and recognize their hard work. We have been meeting with both Schmidt & Sons and CISO on a weekly basis since July to prepare for the challenges of this upcoming school year. Schmidt & Sons brought in their drivers all weekend before the start of school to run practice routes to ensure efficiency and safety. With the virtual academy numbers changing by the hour, CISA brought in extra routers and literally worked 24 hours a day for our family. For this year, our team worked to create seating charts and attendance logs to deliver our students safely while maintaining social distancing. Thank you, Schmidt & Son, CISO, and our entire transportation team.
Thank you very much, Dave. And that concludes our portion of the report.
Thank you, Lisa, Tom, and Dave. And Chair Alton, Directors, that concludes the COVID-19 report for this
Awesome.
week.
Always a full report. Thanks to everybody for pulling all this updated information together. Board members, any comments or questions? Director Chester.
Yeah, just for clarification, for the meal pickups at the 2 middle schools and at Round Elementary, that is Wednesdays only, correct?
Thank you for that clarification. It is Wednesdays only that those meals are available. You can get multiple numbers of meals if that's desired and needed for your family.
Thank you. Director Schatz.
I actually just want to say thank you to everyone who's put together the reporting for this, but also everyone who's truly stepped up and worked so hard to adjust to what is an extremely difficult and fluctuating situation day to day. So my thanks to Superintendent Battle and her team and everyone working on these preparations to make sure that our school year is the best it can be for our kiddos.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions?
I had a question.
Director Hume.
I second everything Darcy said, but I do have a question. Dr. Battle, I believe I heard you say that the virtual academy enrollment is down this week and hybrid enrollment is up a little bit. Are those two things related? Like, are people transitioning from the virtual academy to the hybrid?
Thank you, Director Hume and members of the board. I think, yes, they are related. We're trying to be very accommodating. As you know, we do have students with varying educational needs, such as special education needs. Stacy Sovine is on the call if he would like to add some additional information.
Yeah, our enrollment as a whole went down probably about 15 students, I believe, over the week. We saw a slight uptick in our hybrid and a little bit of decline in our virtual academy. This is the first week that we've seen either of those type of enrollment trends or changes. What we have been noticing, quite frankly, is the virtual academy has been the highest enrollment trend, increasing, I should say. It's been increasing the most. This is the first time that the two have switched. And we'll just have to see over the next few weeks if that continues or not.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments? No? Yes, I second Director Schatz's comments. This is pulling together this information and showing, everything that everybody is doing. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And we're doing everything that we can for our students. So thanks to everybody. And I guess I just also wanted to reiterate Lisa's call out on applying for educational benefits, that it really goes beyond simply the food that's provided either at reduced rates or free of charge. It really makes a difference to the operations and the funding of the school district. And so simply reporting on the reality of your financial situation is really the best thing to do, both for you and your family and for our school district. So please don't hesitate. With that, we will turn to committee, board appointment, and school assignment reports. And we'll start with Director Chester, who chairs the Policy Review Committee.
Thank you, Chair Alt. Yes, the Policy Review Committee met 2 weeks ago, and what we're bringing forward today on the new business agenda on a first reading basis is changes to Policy 302, use of peace officers and crisis teams to remove students with IEPs from school grounds. And then we're bringing forward a couple new policies regarding student fundraising, Policy 511 and 905 for advertising. And then in conjunction with that, because it does correlate with references to policy 706, acceptance of gifts. Includes my report.
Thank you. Next, Director Schatz, who chairs the Negotiations Committee.
There is no report from the Negotiations Committee.
Thank you. And Director Miller, would you like to, is there any?
Actually,
Or Director Hume?
you led the last meeting.
Yes, we met, the legislative committee met on Monday of this week, and received an update from Dr. Battle on the legislative process for getting approval, should we decide to sell any of our properties and what that would mean for us.
Great.
So it was a short meeting, but that was what we talked about.
Awesome, thank you. And Student Performance and Achievement Committee of the Whole, we have looked at a proposed calendar of meetings for, I think, at least through January, possibly for the whole year. Officers will be reviewing that and figuring out what's, we'll come up with something in the next month or so to report back to everybody. Are there any other reports, either from board appointments or school assignments?
I have a Foundation 191 report.
Director Hume.
So Foundation 191 had its annual retreat on Friday, August 28th, and its September monthly meeting was held on Tuesday, September 15th at the Environmental Learning Center in Savage. While I was unable to attend the retreat in August, I did attend the meeting last week. Like many of us, Foundation 191 is focusing on how to keep its work moving forward in the time of COVID. To that end, the Foundation 191 is planning their first Halloween trunk or treat fundraiser for Saturday, October 31st from 2 to 5 p.m. right here at Diamond Head Education Center. Children will receive a bag of treats upon their arrival and will receive additional treats from the owners of the classic cars who will also be in attendance. The 2 to 2:30 p.m. time slot will be reserved for participants with special medical needs or who are at higher risk. Cost is $5 per person, and advanced registration is required in order to ensure appropriate social distancing during each 30-minute time slot. You can find out more at foundation191.org or on the Foundation's Facebook page. And that concludes my report.
Great, thank you very much. Director Courier, I see your hand is up.
Yes, I have my standard 2 reports. The one on AMSD, the Association of Metropolitan School Districts. Their September meeting was held on September 4th, and the presentation was by Peter Leatherman of Morrison Leatherman. And I went to the AMSD website today to review it, and it wasn't there. So of course I've contacted them. It was very interesting because of course it was a report of statistics and information on Minnesota. So I will let the board know when that appears on the AMSD website. But a reminder to board members, the AMSD website is chock full of information for you to review. And so I urge you to check out that website every once in a while. I also have a report on 9/17. The August and September meetings have always been a bit unusual for intermediate 9/17, as it has tried to capture the start of the new school year. This year had an even more unusualness to it. We had a special meeting on September 1st to have the first reading of a new policy, the COVID-19 face covering policy. We wanted to have the second reading at our regular meeting on September 8th before the beginning of the school year, so it would be in place before school began. There is lots of information regarding how the district is handling the COVID challenge on the website as well, as this new policy is located in the policy section. The highlights of the September 8th meeting included the second reading of the COVID face policy, a review and approval of a plan for respirator masks, a review of district leadership goals for the 2021 school year, and lastly, a resolution honoring and mourning the loss of Deb Clark, who had served 917 for over 13 years, representing South St. Paul. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Dr. Courier. Any other reports? Seeing none, we will move to the business portion of our meeting, to the consent agenda. Although board action is required, it is generally unnecessary to hold discussion on these items. In the event a board member wishes to discuss an item, that item will be moved for separate consideration. Is there anything that board members would like to separate? Seeing none, I will take a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Director Chester, second.
Second.
Seconded by Director Hume. Ms. Kenny, would you please call the roll?
Hume,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Alt,
Aye.
Schatz,
Aye.
Chester,
Aye.
Courier.
Aye.
And the motion carries. Thank you. Turning to new business, we're back with Lisa Ryder. We're being asked to approve LTFM Adjusted Budget Plan for FY22. Welcome back, Lisa.
Thank you. On June 11th is when the board last looked at our LTFM project. This is a long-term facility maintenance project list, and we provided a 10-year listing that was then submitted to MDE for purposes of development of our Levy certification, which is also before the discussion tonight. Upon reviewing our Levy certification and taking a closer look at some of the upcoming projects that we have, we believe it's in our best interest to combine the bituminous project for Eagle Ridge Middle School at the same time that we're doing the other work that is already scheduled for this next year as well on the LTFM project plan. Therefore, given that there's an anticipated added cost for the project that has been suggested and included now in the 21-22 school year approval, for an extra $435,560 and an additional $65,000 for concrete work district-wide. Those items are totaling $500,560. So the proposal before you in this resolution includes an increase to our long-term facility maintenance plan for 1 year, which is the 21-22 school year. The other year's totals will remain the same. Because we're moving up these projects, we would backfill them with other projects that are not shown at this time. So therefore, the long-term facility maintenance program budget would now be $2,539,440 with this addition. $409,780 continues to remain the amount that is for health and safety projects. And the difference then is all LTFM for the fiscal year of 21-22. So tonight before you at this time then is this resolution approving the revised Independent School District 191's long-term facility maintenance program budget and authorizing the inclusion of those projects in the district's application for long-term facility maintenance revenue. This will change the next item on the agenda, which is the certification of the levy by the amounts just described. And so that's what you see on the screen is the one page that is the summary off that 40-page document. The summary then shows that at this moment it's not included because it is not yet board approved. So should the board approve this, we would be adding the $500,560 to the total amount in the pay 2021 column. And that would then result in a instead of it being 4.27% decrease in the general fund, it would be a 0.03% decrease. Overall, it would mean that instead of a 0.84% decrease, it would be essentially zero change from the previous year. And so that's for the next agenda item, but I did want you to understand the impact that this particular resolution does have. So with that then, The recommendation is that the Board of Education adopts the resolution approving the revised long-term facilities maintenance program budget for fiscal year 2022.
Thank you, Lisa. I will take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Director Hume, second.
Second.
Seconded by Director Chester. Director Schatz, I'm sorry. Masks muffle us. Are there any questions or discussion? I just have one comment. I appreciate, the willingness to reflect on what we're doing and how we might do things differently so as not to disrupt the whole school community twice and just to do it in one fell swoop. So thank you for that. Ms. Kenny, will you please read the roll?
Miller,
Aye.
Alt,
Aye.
Schatz,
Aye.
Chester,
Aye.
Courier,
Aye.
Hume.
Aye.
And the motion carries. Thank you. Staying with Lisa, the next item, we're being asked to certify the proposed tax levy payable in 2021 and set the date of the Truth in Taxation hearing.
Thank you. So as you see on the screen, this is the summary page. I've discussed that in numbers, but the process as this stands is every September, we receive a report from MDE, and every school district does receive this, and it tells basically how much of our revenue would be generated then by levy dollars. And that's a levy that taxpayers are paying in the calendar year of 2021, which is why it says payable 2021. It's the calendar year. We receive those funds then for the fiscal year for us of 21-22. So before you tonight, we typically in September recommend that the board approve this at a what they term maximum amount. And what that means is then if there's any slight adjustments to formulas or anything of that nature, even on a statewide level, then the total amount that comes before you in December for your final certification would be reflective of those amounts. The alternative is that you would approve this at a line item dollar amount, which then does not necessarily allow for any of those types of adjustments that may be made. So we recommend, and the recommendation is that the Board of Education certify the proposed property tax levy for taxes payable in 2021 and authorize the clerk to execute the levy certification forms in the maximum amount, and to also schedule the Truth in Taxation hearing on December 10th, 2020, to be held during the regularly scheduled board meeting beginning at 6:30 p.m.
Thank you. I will take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Director Chester, second.
That was me again.
Was that you again? Director Schatz first, Director Chester second. Thank you. Are there any questions or discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Kenny, will you please call the roll?
Alt,
Aye.
Schatz,
Aye.
Chester,
Aye.
Courier,
Aye.
Hume,
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
And the motion carries. Thank you. Next, we're turning to policies with Stephanie White, Director of Student Support Services. We're being asked to approve on a first reading basis changes to Policy 532, use of peace officers and crisis teams to remove students with IEPs from the school grounds. Welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Alt, directors, and Superintendent Battle. Tonight I'm here to present the first reading for Policy 532. This policy helps guide our work as we are supporting students during a potential crisis situation. And the alignment on the changes that are being made are towards the end of the policy, which helps align the practices that the Minnesota Department of Ed is asking us to do. And it is specifically on how we report our data under the guidance that they've provided us. And so when we use restrictive procedures in our buildings, we have to report those 4 times a year. And this update to the policy puts those specific dates and timelines within it.
Great, thank you very much. And I already read the recommendation, so I will take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Director Hume,
Second.
seconded by Director Miller. Discussion. Hearing none, Ms. Kenny, will you please call the roll?
Scott,
Aye.
Chester,
Aye.
Courier,
Aye.
Hume,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Alt.
Aye. And the motion carries. Thank you, Stephanie. Finally, we're back to Lisa Ryder. We're being asked to approve on a first reading basis new policies 511, student fundraising, and 905, advertising, and non-substantive changes to policy 706, acceptance of gifts.
Thank you, Chair Alt, Board of Directors, and Superintendent Battle. We have these three policies coming before you together in a group as they find themselves kind of connecting at various different times, and in many cases, there's cross-referencing happening. So we'll start with the 511, which is the student fundraising. And as you can see, that this policy is attempting to lay out the guidelines for how fundraisers are to be conducted. We do not currently have a student fundraising policy, and there is a necessity for us to create one. We know fundraising is happening. We just now need to put the framework in place so that we can monitor, track, and report back to you on exactly what that looks like. So as you can see here, under responsibility, 3A, anywhere where it says superintendent, we're adding or designee. We are also suggesting that a fundraiser must be conducted in a manner that will protect the privacy and dignity of individual students, employees, and the school. The language otherwise in this policy is MSBA model language. Letter C, however, we are including here, again, superintendent or designee is responsible for providing the coordination throughout the district as deemed appropriate. The other thing I want to point out is at the end of the policy 511, under number 4, annual report, you recently had 713 come before you, which was around student activity accounting, and we talked then about student activity groups wanting to do fundraising. So similar to that language in that particular policy, we created basically the same verbiage here. The administration will prepare a fundraising report semi-annually, which will be reviewed by the school board in May and November. So we would look to bring that forward for both student activities as well as regular school activities related to fundraising. The report will list the activity, the type of the fundraiser, timing, purpose, and results. As I mentioned, we do not have this policy in play yet. And so as we work to develop this, you'll be getting your first report, but it might be pretty small compared to what we can see in the future, but at least we'll get that process rolling. Under cross-references, we did also reference here the 713 policy, given it is very similar in nature. Moving on to the next policy. 905 is advertising, and under this policy, we made sure there was a definition here related to advertising and calling out the fact that it means the action of calling something to the attention of the public by paid announcements. Sorry, I missed the purpose here. The purpose of this policy is to provide guidance for the advertising or promoting of products or services. We know we have this happening across the district. We also need to just kind of get our hands around that a little bit more. So the guidelines here are intended to basically remind people of the fact that we must follow our own district policies, to have our site administrators more involved in that understanding of what is happening with the advertising, and to make sure that we're being responsible for what that content might be. And anywhere there's a superintendent, we've added or designee. Under letter C, under number 4, we have no advertising which promotes external competing entities, especially as it relates to enrollment, athletics, and activities for the district will be allowed. Letter D, we are making mention of the fact that we need to make sure we're following that Policy 706, acceptance of gifts. And other references to superintendent or designee under the new letter F. Under, I guess it would be 5, is the accounting. And so this does state that we do have a special source code we use for purposes of tracking advertising revenue. So that's been in place for some time. But should that amount exceed 10,000 annually, which it has not in the past few years, then we would also then need to make sure that we have that periodic report to the board. In addition, we're also adding to this particular policy some cross-referencing for policy 421. Let's see, and I believe we're also adding 702 and 706. The basis, again, of that 905 was also MSBA model language. Moving on to 706, the final of the 3 policies. We have not changed this policy. This was an existing policy of ours. We have just modified the cross-references at the bottom to include 511 and 905.
Great. Thank you. I will take a motion to approve these policies.
So moved.
Moved by Director Chester, second.
Second.
Seconded by Director Hume. Questions or comments? Director Miller.
Yes, thank you. So first of all, looking at in the order you went, the donations or student fundraising. So this is a new policy for us, correct?
Correct.
And I just want to clarify, because there's red lines in here. I assume that means you took an MSBA template. These are the adjustments that you're making to the MSBA template, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Just so if anybody is reviewing this would understand that, but
Okay.
it's a little confusing because it's a new policy. But and so this applies to anybody, any student organization. Okay, so boosters, for instance, would be encompassed in this?
No, this does not include this includes ISD 191, and which now, because our student activity is under board control, it includes our student activities, but it does not include parent-teacher organizations, it does not include boosters. We encourage them to follow similar, but essentially they do their fundraising, and then they would be working through our donations policy as they determine the money coming into our school district through that process.
Okay. But that their actions, we would not receive a report of their actions in any
The
manner.
report you receive would not include the actions of
donation.
PTO or boosters.
Okay, I think that's it for the fundraising.
Can I ask a related follow-up question
Please,
to that?
please go ahead.
Just to clarify, the boosters and the PTOs, that's because they are separate 501c3s, is that right?
Yes, they have their own tax ID number. There are restrictions around how much fundraising you can do before sales tax is required. And so they must follow those rules for their organization, and we must follow those rules for our organization. And this policy is only applying to that which we are doing and conducting under our tax ID number.
I'm just curious, you have an example of what fundraising already occurs that's outside the scope of boosters, or, I mean, obviously BAC and such are all entirely different, but PTOs and such too. What are we doing elsewise? I'm curious.
I'm not sure I'm following.
What other kind of fundraising are we doing that's outside of the scope of boosters, and is there
So-
team fundraising going on, or?
So I think that there are opportunities in which activities for fundraising that fall under the gambling can sometimes be conducted through certain licensure, but we don't do that like within our ISD 191, and we would not be doing those particular types of fundraising, but other entities may choose to do so.
Well, I was just asking currently. You implied that we know other things, things are going on. What are we currently raising money for that's not under the confines of like a boosters club or or a PTO or
I just meant that we're not tracking and monitoring it because
Yeah.
our process doesn't necessarily
like
pull
the
it all
robotics
in.
club does something?
But that's a booster club.
Yeah.
for the robotics team and
So I
stuff
think the
that's
majority,
involved in this.
all I'm saying is that if we, in current climate, current activities, this report's gonna be very small, I believe.
I think that's.
It depends on the student activity group, so like gaming club, maybe want to raise money to get something for their club activity that would, so it'd be something that isn't probably related or
No, I
correlated to a booster.
I understand that, I think that the way the district is structured right now, most of these activities occur under booster type organizations as well.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know,
Yeah.
Is there any, addressing the issue of the ability to earmark these? So if a group raises a certain amount of money, they can say it has to go to this costume or that helmet or that computer or whatever.
Right, so as you looked at the 713 policy, it said that if a student activity account, a group of student activities, let me say this differently. If a student activity group is doing a fundraiser, their funds must be tracked for their group, okay, and used for that purpose. So that's still true in the case. If we have, say a middle school is doing a fundraiser, you know, we're going to internally track that fundraising money under the middle school, and we're gonna track it that way when we record it. It's gonna show up on our fundraising report as being a middle school fundraiser and such like that. If they choose not to use those funds in the school year, then it would need to either fall under the committed funds that would be tracked moving forward and approved for such, which would require them to have that communication and make sure that that's understood. If you have someone who is wanting to donate funds for a particular person, then that falls under the donation policy, and then you can do restricted gifts that way too.
So, this is, relative to, I don't see any reference if this is cash or in-kind donations, there's encompasses of all.
So our process for donations will have a method. Currently, everything's going to a Google Sheet that Jamie is tracking, and you see that report. We're looking to connect the cash-related stuff all to an e-commerce on the website, and so we have training happening this month for our staff to be able to build particular codes and measures for people to be able to donate cash through the website, and that will allow things to be more connected with the finances and the reporting being all one. And that's one of the steps that we haven't had up to date. So we'll continue the Google Sheet for purposes of the donations in kind or for non-cash donations, but then for cash donations, it would fall under a website purpose where we can actually show those deposits being made.
Well, I apologize if I'm about to open a can of worms, but every year, every classroom asks for a long list of items from each student coming in. How does that fit into the, raising funds if those are in
That's
kind?
a fine example of why we want to get this policy in play. And what we would hope to do is with the principal's involvement, we would build somewhat like we did with the field trips, is kind of a matrix. So at grade levels, what is it that we're looking for and need for donations? And how might we conduct that so it might actually look a little differently and be more easily tracked and traceable? And so that is yet to be built and come to fruition, but this is our starting point of being able to kind of get our hands around that.
So the policy's intent is all of those activities would ultimately fall into that report at the end of the
That's
annual
the goal.
report?
That is the goal, that we can have a measure for that. So if you can imagine, you'd go to the website and you'd see my classroom at this particular school, and I could see a list of all the things that are needed, and I could, instead of carting everything there, I potentially could just donate the cash, and then that would be something then that we could then purchase in bulk, for example, and deliver then to the classrooms.
Oh,
So-
all right. It is an unfortunate reality of the world we live in that we even have to do that. It's always bugged the heck out of me. But I do caution that we don't put too many barriers in the way of getting teachers off their feet on the first day of class at the beginning of the school year, because those items have become critical to the maintenance of their classroom. So.
Absolutely.
Then just over to the other new one, again, the same, I just noting that it's got a lot of line outs on it. That's because we're moving away from we started with the MSBA template and are adjusting to that. Is this, just means something to the public by paid announcements. So this is only for paid announcements. This does not encompass non-paid announcements or requests to just other placements or in publications or.
That's the meaning of advertising. This does reference school publications, so like if you've got a sports flyer for the game, for example, and you have someone sponsoring it, we're asking then, and under 4A, you know, how that needs to be determined or what the verbiage needs to look like. And the fact that those types of things, they can happen, it's just a matter of, sometimes it's not so much cash that's transacting there, it's more about, let me sponsor the cost of creating those particular flyers for that game kind of thing, right?
But if the hockey club wants to announce that, you know, the season's starting and they wanted to get those, we don't have Friday folders for the most part anymore, but in the equivalent in each school, that's not a paid advertising. There was no cash transaction there. No, like, so is that encompassed in this
Well, it's partly why we've
policy?
moved away, and that kind of falls under that other policy related to, you know, distribution of materials. But if we're talking about, we just don't do many flyers anymore that way, right? So that's more e-news type, that message can go out. Let's say a box of pencils are delivered and they all have advertising on them, things of that nature. I mean, that can be an in-kind donation that now has advertising on it, which is why you see this coming together. You know, it's really between all three of these policies is to get across the message of, you know, the advertising that is there needs to be appropriate. It needs to avoid certain types of things. And it could be a donation that's an in-kind, and so we want them to understand that too as well. And, you know, something might be a fundraiser where something's donated and the purpose of it is to actually resell that material potentially. So it just depends on kind of how that looks. That's why the three of them are coming together. The intent is not necessarily to get too heavy into all the different types of advertising that might exist. It's more of a general policy to just serve as an overarching expectation guidelines.
Section A has a note about the site administrator is responsible for screening all such advertisement for appropriateness. Then section B goes on to say the superintendent or designee may approve advertising. So I'm just curious about if the site administrator is, say, a principal at, you know, a school, and there's a dispute, is it assumed that that process will follow the normal chain of command and move up to the superintendent's office then? Okay.
Yep.
So it doesn't necessarily have to die with the site administrator if there's a disagreement about
No.
the appropriateness or whatever. Okay. And then I think the only other thing I would just call out, you know, I think it's important that everybody understands the last point, H, I guess it is under 4, that the inclusion of advertisement in school district facilities does not constitute approval or endorsement of any products. So that's good that we have that in there. So. All right, that ends my thoughts on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I have some,
Director Courier.
yes. Back,
Oh, you're muted or something. Director Courier, your mic. Maybe she.
teachers crunch through them. Was there a process where this principals or others looked at this policy or before it came to the policy committee?
So Dr. Curry, I did not hear the original part of your conversation, but I'm understanding your question to be whether or not 905 has gone through the review by principals prior to coming to the policy committee. Is that correct?
Yes, did 511 have work before it came to the policy committee?
Actually, no, 511 has, months ago, that we've talked about it with principals. When we had discussions in previous years even, related to student fundraising. We do have a small subset committee that is working on donations, fundraising, and advertising. And so they are the ones who have helped us, and they are representatives of the different levels of principalship. So they, along with Kathy Funston and Robin and I, have worked to try and identify how can we work with the e-commerce opportunities we have on our website to be able to manage the cash portion of this, as well as then also utilize Google and other forms to be able to document the non-cash and other means. So in whole, the framework that we've been working on to be able to deliver on these policies has been something that we've worked very closely with that core group. But with everything else happening for our principals at this point in time has not been spent in the last 4 months on this conversation. It's been longer than that.
Okay. I worry the most about the middle school level now. For example, a junior high or a middle school dance event where lots of cash comes in, would that be considered a fundraiser?
So if it is a fundraiser by a particular student group, like let's say it's the student council at a middle school, then that fundraiser that they're conducting would generate the revenue that would go directly into their account for that purpose. If it happened to be a school-wide fundraiser, then it would be tracked and monitored by that school itself in the appropriate codes that we have available to them. The whole point of our framework and these policies coming before the board at this time is really to try and have a means and a mechanism to be able to accurately report what it looks like for fundraising and for our donations.
Okay. And the reason I brought that up is I know some of those events, especially the middle school level, those events, that amount of cash that comes in is sometimes huge. And the reporting, that twice a year reporting might get to be cumbersome. In other words, I would monitor this policy and see if it works.
Yep.
Or if it needs to be fine-tuned. I know when I served at the junior high, I worried about the cash. So I hope that especially the middle schools are staffed appropriately, that this doesn't become, an additional staffing concern, given the activities. Right now, with the COVID crisis, it's manageable, but kind of under a regular middle school activity, in other words, it needs monitoring over time.
Understood.
Yeah,
Thank you, Director Courier.
you're welcome.
Any other comments or questions? I had a couple. These three policies, I remember the last time I was on the Policy Review Committee, it probably was 2 to 3 years ago. And it's great to see these three policies finally coming to us, because I know what kind of a tangled ball of yarn they really are with how they intermingle and the implications of each of them with the other. So thanks to the Policy Review Committee for bringing this forward to us, because we obviously, with legislative changes, it's time. I have one question on, actually it's more of a comment on Policy 905. For the site administrator is responsible for screening all such advertising for appropriateness, et cetera, et cetera. I just feel like this is, depending on what advertising might be coming into the school, I'd like to suggest that it should be a shall, not a may. Because shall has more emphasis than may, and it would be really unfortunate if some kind of advertising made its way into our schools simply because it wasn't properly reviewed by the proper person.
Where's the word shall? Help me.
It isn't there. It says
Oh.
is responsible, and I'm suggesting that it could read, site administrator shall screen all such advertising for appropriateness, et cetera, et cetera. If board members are open to that.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. That was all that I had. Thank you very much, Lisa.
Mhm.
With that, we will adjourn to a workshop about facilities with Dr. Battle, Lisa Ryder, and Stacy Kivalang from
Gerald, yeah, do we need to vote?
We do.
We need to vote.
I'm sorry. All right. Ms. Kenny, will you please call the roll?
Chester,
Aye.
Courier,
Aye.
Hume,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Alt,
Aye.
Schatz.
Aye.
Thank you for your patience, guys.
Gerald, one point of clarification.
Yes.
I know we moved away from a motion to adjourn when we went to the virtual, but did we research whether we need to do that for hybrid or not?
I can still declare us. I mean,
Yeah.
we can do it either way, but.
No, that's fine.
Yeah,
If you
I can
can, if we-
declare
I
us,
just don't
declare us
wanna-
adjourned, and, Aaron, do you need a couple minutes?
No, you can go right into
We can
the
keep going.
workshop if you want to. We'll stop the broadcast, but the YouTube will still go out live so that people can, it's still a public meeting.
Awesome. So I'll declare us adjourned, and we will move directly to our workshop.